Hi, this is Deena, and welcome back to Firsts. On this episode, I'm going to be discussing the relationship between fashion and Hollywood, but not in the more common way where people are discussing costume design in movies, which is another subject that we can revisit later. It is more about the relationship between fashion houses and finding out how lucrative it was to dress celebrities in their wares for award shows and ceremonies. I'd like to say that the first time I was aware of that, and really I feel like the pioneer in all of this, was Giorgio Armani in the late 80s. I think he was clever enough after having done some costume designs in movies like American Gigolo and The Untouchables that it would be very smart to have a operation in LA in which they can dress their favorite actors. And that was maybe the first time I was aware of a designer being mentioned on the red carpet in a way that had not been done previously. Because most of the time, performers, actors and actresses would really just buy their look for the night. There was no such thing as a stylist, really. People just got dressed in what they felt was elegant for the night. So some of that is good and some of that is bad and some of it is interesting. And I will maybe further elaborate on that. When Mr. Armani had the looks on people like Jodie Foster and Michelle Pfeiffer at the Oscar ceremony, he brought in a very streamlined, elegant, slick, beautiful look on both of these actresses that had not really been seen before. It was more polished. And as the years went by, other designers really tapped into this whole stream of revenue because their name recognition made all the difference in awareness. I think the epitome of a brand that truly, and I feel, really associates with Hollywood is Versace.
It's interesting because I had the pleasure of attending Versace's show back in March of 2023 during Oscar week. And it really got me thinking back to certain viral moments that Versace had in Hollywood in general, and not just at the Oscars, but really in any other movie premieres or in award shows.
Most memorably, and this is something that I feel really changed the game, is the moment when Elizabeth Hurley was wearing the safety pin dress. She was at the time dating Hugh Grant. Not many people knew about her outside of England. And she was attending a premiere of Hugh's movie and decided to wear that dress. It wasn't even something that was deeply researched or anything like that. It's just a dress that worked. And boy, did it work, because when she arrived to that premiere, everybody was looking at her. Everybody wanted to know who she was. It fit her like a glove. It was a very, very important moment. And I think it was also a great moment for the House of Versace itself, because it really made everybody pay attention in a way that I don't think they ever had before. And that was so instrumental in maybe getting Miss Hurley to become a much bigger star. She later obviously had her own roles in movies in the United States, as well as being an ambassadress for Estee Lauder. The other incredible Versace moment, which I think more people are aware of this, is really the reason why Google Images even came into being. Because at that moment in time, this was a very famous dress that Jennifer Lopez wore to the Grammy Awards. And that dress had been worn previously by the designer, by Donatella Versace, who obviously she started designing after her brother had passed away when he was murdered in 1997. And also worn by the model Amber Valletta for editorial and the Runway. She wore that dress and she was standing there on the podium with David Duchovny. And it was the moment in which the internet was broken. I mean, everybody wanted to know. I think it was the most searched dress ever. And I think it was very interesting that's how Google Images became a thing. And it's funny because 20 years later, they had J-Lo going into that runway show to be the finale of the show in a variation of that dress with all of the pop-ups of this Google search in the background on screen. And so I just find all of that very interesting because I mean now it's a almost a multi-billion dollar business how to get, in every award season, whether it's the Grammys, whether it's the Oscars, the Golden Globes, you will now have a whole engine of designers and representatives and stylists and hair and makeup people that are all competing about which look is going to be a look to be remembered.
An interesting evolution that's happened recently between fashion and red carpet and how styling has recently changed to stars dressing with symmetry to their characters in the films they're promoting. For example, earlier this year, Zendaya's stylist La Roche themed promo touring wardrobe for the movie Challenges to be tennis. Another very famous example is when Margot Robbie was touring for the Barbie movie. She wore styles that emulated famous Barbie looks from across the decades, which ended up becoming viral. So the relationship between Hollywood and red carpet has evolved even more, where the foundations were initially set by fashion designers in the 90s, but today we see actors wanting to own their star factor, using fashion as a vehicle to elevate their persona. This actually goes back to the studio system in a sense, so it's like a full circle moment, because back in the day, with the studio system controlling every element of the star's look, the star would actually be presented in a way that complemented the movie they were promoting and the persona of the movie star themselves.
Which brings me back to how I started this conversation. Part of that, unfortunately, in my eye, has taken away from the spontaneity of what made watching the red carpet and award shows interesting to begin with, because it has become so streamlined and so safe that it's not as interesting as it used to be. Because believe it or not, when something was a mistake, sometimes it added value, and sartorial choices by the talent walking in the red carpet made it worth watching. There are notable examples of this. You have Bjork and that very famous swan dress. You have Rose McGowan wearing a very revealing, risque dress at the MTV Awards. Lil' Kim wearing that paste-on nipple cover at the awards. Those are moments that I'm not sure we're going to be able to see again, only because I think everybody wants to make sure that they're on the best dress list and not, what not to wear. And it takes away from some of the beauty of, or at least to me, just some of the excitement of not knowing what you're going to see. I'll give you another example of something that was very memorable to me. Madonna was attending, trying to remember if it was the Globes. Madonna was wearing an Olivier Teskin's beautiful vest dress on top of a tulle skirt. And that was the first time we've ever heard of this designer, but it really, really, really made him, it put him on the map. It really inspired, more people to look into his work, and later on getting him great contracts at houses like Rocha, and then having Taskin's Theory. And that's, I think, what's changed now. I think, and having said that, I'm not saying that there aren't designers that are discovered through a celebrity wearing them at an award or at a concert or at a premiere. It's just, maybe it was just a little more exciting because you truly didn't know where this was coming from. And I think really the biggest aspect that I see a change in is everybody's insistence on safety to such a degree that it's become mundane. Things used to be done so meticulously and so beautifully that that's how you create a moment, because those moments are fleeting. It's almost like a kismet. You have to get everything right, and sometimes it just happens organically and naturally. At least some of my favorite looks happened that way. I mean, to my knowledge, Miss Hurley didn't really have her makeup and hair done by professionals. It was all very spontaneous, yet it was such a memorable moment. that I think will stay for the ages. Again, you see, those are moments that stay with you, and not necessarily for the reasons that people are planning today. I think in the end, I think everybody is trying to obviously stand out and look memorable, and because not only does it serve the actor that is wearing it, it's also serving the house that or the designer that's making it, and it serves the jeweler, and it serves the stylist, and it serves the hair and makeup people, but it doesn't always align in the way that you think it should. So that's really my take on all of it. And I wonder what my listeners think of all of this. I think also with this becoming a true business, and at this point, we're now at a level where celebrities are being paid to, not only are they allowed to borrow or have a one of a kind piece designed for them, they're sometimes getting paid to wear this. And sometimes the stylist is getting paid to put this designer or designer A or B on this celebrity. What has also went out of this equation is there used to be a time when you could take a chance on someone that may not have the funding and may not have that exposure and have a Star is Born moment. Hence the example of Olivier Taskins, who definitely was a very young designer who was really just starting on his own. He wasn't really a big name yet. And I think you'll see less and less of that now. And I think that also adds into the element of why it's become a little bit more mundane. This is part of why the way we view fashion and the way we view dressing is no longer as, it's a little more studied and a lot more calculated. And I think that unfortunately takes away sometimes from what was a joy to begin with. I find it to be a fascinating subject. And I really would love to see more moments like the Elizabeth Hurley and Jennifer Lopez. And I'd love to see those moments repeated. Having said that, there's going to be a celebrity sometimes that you didn't really know. You would have never thought, oh, I didn't know you had it in you. And that's when the stars truly align. And I think that's why, you never underestimate the power of a great team, especially when the aim in the end is to really have a special moment, a moment that's not forgettable. So this has been First by Deena. Thank you for listening and hope to hear from you and talk very soon. Goodbye.